ready for taking that grist down with him. You killed my boy.
Go get the captain.
He knows how far I came for him.
At the beginning of the movie, for trapper and hunter Hugh Glass watches as American soldiers burn down a Native American village. Years later, in 1823, Glass, along with his half-pony son Hawk, are out hunting along with other trappers working for Captain Andrew Henry. Back at their camp, the large number of trappers are gathering their pelts, overseen by experienced trapper John Fitzgerald.
I want you to hoop them up real tight.
Jim from the hunting party returns trying to get help to haul back the elk they just killed, but to no success.
You go get the captain.
Suddenly, the camp is attacked as arrows begin to fly and men begin to fall.
Nobody move! Just stay where you are! Stay here!
It turns out to be a tribe of Native Americans known as the Iroquois, and as the men return fire, Glass, who is still cleaning the elk with Hawk, hears the gunfire and begins rushing back to camp. He returns to chaos and is attacked, almost killed by an Indian until someone saves his life. Fitzgerald gathers the survivors and they grab the pelts and start retreating to the boat, many falling along the way. Jim is almost drowned trying to escape until Fitzgerald saves his life. What's left of the trappers make it back to the boat, including Glass, Hawk, Henry, and a few more trappers. As the Iroquois collect the pelts left behind, we learn they are searching for a woman. The surviving trappers sail down the fog-covered Missouri River, guns ready and eyes trained on the banks as they are being tracked by an Iroquois party. Henry turns to Glass for his expertise. He thinks the Missouri is no good, and they need to abandon the boat and find a new path on land. Fitzgerald disagrees, thinking it's the safest place they can be, but Henry trusts Glass's opinion over his, as he knows the woods better than all of them combined. They come ashore downriver, with plans to set the boat loose as a diversion. The plan is to chart a new course toward Fort Kiowa, and Fitzgerald again thinks it's a mistake leaving the boat behind. The men stash their pelts along the riverbank, praying they don't rot before they can return. Fitz doubts the fur will be there when they return, and Andrew thinks it's either the furs or their lives, but Fitzgerald reminds him he has no life outside of these pelts. His anger then turns on Glass, blaming him for allowing the Iroquois to sneak up on them. He also insults Hawk, calling him a savage despite his mixed blood. This angers Hawk, but Glass holds him back. Fitzgerald continues egging, wondering how he escaped the village massacre years earlier, accusing him of killing his own to save his half-breed. Glass ignores him, which angers him even more, so he gets up in Glass's face until Henry orders him to stand down, warning that they need to get moving. Glass warns Hawk to keep his mouth shut, as these men only see the color of his skin, and he needs his son alive. By morning, the Iroquois hunting party finds their boat and plans to track them through the mountains. Glass then sets a course through the mountains, leading the men around Iroquois territory. Henry wonders if they made the right decision with the boat, but Glass knows the Iroquois, which they also call the Ree, would have flanked them downstream. His way will lead them out of Ree territory, where they have nothing to hunt. Henry wonders if what Fitzgerald said back at the river was true. He also asks about Hawk's mother, but Glass ignores his questions. The next morning, Glass sets out early to trap game. Some bear cubs cross his path, then out of nowhere, the large mother charges at Glass, pinning him to the ground and sinking its claws and teeth into his body. At one point during the brutal attack, the bear goes to check on its cubs. Glass painfully crawls over to his rifle. The bear turns to face him once more, and he fires off a shot, but it's no use as the bear resumes mauling him. The bear backs away for a minute, so Glass pulls his knife, stabbing the bear multiple times until it finally dies, falling on top of him. The rest of the men finally come checking for him and find him barely hanging on to life. Fitzgerald, however, blames him for alerting the Ree with his gunshot, causing Hawk to attack him until they pull him off. Henry sends the men to check the area for Indians while he, Jim, and Hawk try to patch Glass up. Fitzgerald thinks the kind, merciful thing to do is to end him, thinking he won't survive another day. Glass isn't looking good, from deep cuts in his back to a large wound around his throat, but Hawk stays by his side talking to him. The Ree chief meets with some French trappers to trade the pelts they stole for horses. The French men refuse to part with any horses, only offering guns and ammunition. One man insults the Ree chief to his face in French, but the chief surprises them all by responding in French. The chief declares that they are all thieves, as 2 white men stole his daughter from their village. He is taking the horses with him and welcomes the French men to try and stop him, so they are forced to part with 5 horses. Later, Henry and the men gather around a fire while Glass lies bandaged and barely breathing nearby. He wants the men up by dawn, as they will be carrying Glass along with them. Jim then puts a claw they took from the bear in Glass's bag. Early the next morning, the men set out with Glass, bickering and fighting among themselves but pushing on with him. They go higher into the mountains where snow covers the ground, and they start finding it hard to carry Glass. Fitzgerald thinks they should just end things, and without any more options, Henry gives in. While they hold on to a bawling Hawk, Jim places a rag over Glass's eyes. Henry readies to end him with his gun, but cannot bring himself to do it, so he offers $70 to the 3 men willing to stay behind with Glass. Hawk and Jim volunteer, but everybody else has excuses. No amount of money would convince Fitzgerald to stay behind, but Henry is willing to pay $100, reminding them that Glass is the reason they were successful. Hearing this, Fitzgerald decides to be the third, giving his word that he will look out for Glass. Hawk stays by Glass's side, talking strength into him and reminding him of the woman he loved. Glass remembers her and the fateful day he lost her, the memory giving him strength to keep on breathing. While this is happening, Fitzgerald is busy digging a grave for Glass in the woods. Later, he talks about what he will do with his cash, not concerned with Glass. When Hawk goes to catch fish, he complains to a silent Glass how much he is lagging behind Henry and the others, offering to help him end things when it's time. He comes over to Glass, telling him the Ree are so close he can smell them, and he needs to think of Hawk. Glass tries to talk, but the words won't come out. Fitzgerald tells him to blink if he wants to end things. Glass stares him dead in the eyes, but is eventually forced to blink. Fitzgerald then straps Glass down, then stuffs a rag down his throat trying to end him, but Hawk returns, pushing him away. Hawk holds the gun to Fitzgerald, yelling for Jim. He won't shut up, so Fitzgerald sinks a knife into his stomach, killing him. Glass sees all this, grunting and screaming, but unable to do anything to help his son. Jim later returns asking for Hawk, but Fitzgerald claims not to know. Glass tries to talk, but still no words come out. The next morning, Fitzgerald wakes Jim from his sleep, warning him that the Ree are close. Jim doesn't want to leave Glass behind, but Fitzgerald has no time to waste and drags Glass to the grave he prepared. He barely covers Glass with dirt before taking off, and left without a choice, Jim apologizes to Glass and leaves his flask behind before taking off. A while later, Glass regains the strength to drag himself from the dirt. Crying out in pain with every movement. He crawls over to Hawk's body and lays down beside his son. Jim and Fitzgerald are preparing to head out the next morning. Fitzgerald mentions the Ree they escaped, but now says there were a dozen. Jim finds this suspicious, holding his gun to Fitzgerald and demanding an explanation, and if he even saw the Ree. Fitzgerald confesses that there was no Ree. He disarms Jim, telling him he did what needed to be done. He thinks maybe he should kill Jim too, pressing the rifle against his head, but the gun misfires, so he tells Jim he is lucky and to grab his things. Glass says his final goodbyes to Hawk before dragging himself over to his things. Now with his coat on, he finds a decomposed carcass and scrapes the rotting bone marrow to regain his strength. Still trying to find the chief's daughter, Pawaka, the Ree soon pass through, finding fresh blood they suspect is Pawaka's and Hawk's dead body. Glass continues dragging himself through the snow until he gets to a river. He tries to drink, but his neck wound makes it hard, so Glass rubs gunpowder on the wound and lights a fire, which he uses to painfully cauterize his neck wound, instantly passing out from the pain. He stays in that same area recovering, eating birds, plants, and whatever he gets his hands on. The Ree soon catch up to him, and Glass hides himself along the banks of the river trying to avoid being seen, but he is soon spotted. He jumps into the river, barely avoiding the arrows and spears flying at him. The current is strong and carries him away, but he manages to grab onto a log and float downstream until he manages to come ashore, the cold soaking all the way to his bones. Fitzgerald and Jim come upon an Indian village, corpses littering the ground. Fitzgerald is indifferent to the sight, warning Jim to look out for any live ones. While he is distracted looking for horses, Jim stumbles upon a lone Indian woman hiding and leaves a piece of bread behind for her. Glass sets up a fire at the very spot. He is slowly starting to recover, using a stick to move around and eating raw fish from the river. He hears a rumbling nearby and climbs the bank of the river to see a large herd of buffalo and watches as a pack of wolves surround and take one down. That night, he's woken up by the sound of howling. A lone Pawnee Indian man has killed and chased away the wolves for the buffalo meat. Glass goes over, dropping to his face when the man, Hykuk, points an arrow at him and begging for something to eat. Seeing his state, Hykuk eventually tosses him a cut, which he devours, and the two seem to share a silent connection. The next morning, Hykuk wakes Glass, who tells him of his encounter with the grizzly, showing him its claws, and that his men killed his son and left him for dead. Hykuk has also lost his family to the Sioux and is searching for more of his people, so the two start traveling together. Fitzgerald and Jim make it back to Fort Kiowa, and Fitzgerald urges him not to go growing a conscience when they get back. The two report to Henry, Fitzgerald lying that he was given a proper burial and everything was done according to the books, not giving Jim a chance to speak. Henry pays them both, but Jim leaves his share on the table. Hykuk and Glass continue traveling together. A snowstorm starts coming in, and the drop in temperature causes Glass to fall ill, but Hykuk makes a fire for him and drags him close before creating a sweat lodge around him. As the fever takes over, Glass dreams seeing Hawk again, and the two share a hug, but Hawk soon disappears and he is left hugging a tree. Glass emerges from the lodge the next morning with no sign of Hykuk. He sees some tracks leading away and follows them, only to stumble upon Hykuk's lynched body. A sign written in French hung around his neck, and nearby, a group of French-Canadian trappers are camped. Glass waits until nightfall to approach the camp, where he finds Hykuk's horse, but also among the men is Pawaka, who is being used as a pleasure slave. He sees the leader of the men, Toussaint, having his way with Pawaka and sneaks up on him, holding his own gun to his head to stop him from screaming. He has Pawaka hold a blade to Toussaint while he tries to ready the horse, but Toussaint's men come searching for him. Glass shoots one man, and while Pawaka escapes on foot, Glass rides away, leaving the flask Henry gave him behind. At the fort, the men are holding a party, but only money is on Fitzgerald's mind. He approaches a drunk Henry, demanding payment for trapping the pelts, as leaving them behind was not his fault. But Henry reveals he actually owes the company money, as he purchased more items than he allotted pay. Glass sleeps under a tree that night, holding the gun he stole at the ready. Early the next morning, he is surprised awake by the Ree who have found him. He quickly jumps up and mounts his horse, shooting at the charging men, but ends up riding over a cliff. Fortunately, a pine tree breaks his fall, but his horse is dead. Another snowstorm quickly comes in, and Glass is forced to disembowel the horse and crawl into its body nude to survive. When the storm passes, he drags himself out of the frozen corpse, laying a hand on it as a thank you before continuing on. The following day, a French survivor turns up at Fort Kiowa, telling Henry and his men that his party was attacked by a man who killed their leader. Jim recognizes the flask the man carries as Glass's, but suggests it may belong to Hawk. Hearing this, Henry organizes a search party, leaving Fitzgerald to watch the man. Realizing that Glass is still alive, Fitzgerald begins to fear the worst. Henry and some men soon set out on horses, calling out for Hawk. A gunshot rings out nearby, and a figure walks out, and the men are shocked to see Glass still alive. Realizing he has been lied to, Henry takes Jim into custody and rushes back to the fort to confront Fitzgerald.
Get up! You see Fitzgerald? Where did he go?
only to find out that he has escaped the fort with plans to go to Texas. Henry then heads over to his office, only to realize that Fitzgerald has stolen all the money from his safe. The rest of the men return, and Henry attacks Jim for lying to him, planning to arrest him for treason and hang him in the morning while Jim pleads for his life. Later, Glass explains the entire situation to Henry, asking him to spare Jim, as he was not there when Hawk died and was just following orders. Fitzgerald is the one to be blamed, and Glass demands a horse and gun, ignoring Henry's pleas for him to rest. He plans to hunt Fitzgerald to the end of the earth, as he has nothing left to lose. Hearing his resolve, Henry decides to ride with him. The two set out early the next morning, and Glass instantly gets on Fitzgerald's trail, tracking him through deep snow. After a day's ride, they get within a mile of Fitzgerald and split up in order to ambush him. Glass finds the spot where Fitzgerald was camped out, but no sign of him. Henry is looking for his tracks when Fitzgerald holds him at gunpoint. Henry demands his arrest for attempted murder, but Fitzgerald has no intention of surrendering, and the two men fire at each other. Glass hears the gunshots and rushes toward them, only to find Henry dead, scalped to make his death seem like Indians. Realizing that Fitzgerald is now onto him, Glass comes up with a plan. He props Henry's body up on his horse and takes his place on the second horse. Fitzgerald sees a figure riding and shoots him from a distance, thinking it's Glass, only to come closer and realize it's Henry. Glass shoots him in the shoulder, and he takes off running with Glass in pursuit with a rifle. Glass tracks him into some woods, unaware he is hiding nearby. Fitzgerald tries shooting him, but misses and takes off once more. The two end up falling down to the bank of a river, where Fitzgerald tries talking his way out, saying he had to kill Hawk because he wouldn't stop screaming. He thinks they had a deal, but Glass tells him there was no deal. He wants revenge. He charges at Fitzgerald and ends up taking off a few of his fingers with his axe. Fitzgerald pulls a knife, and the two clash, slashing, stabbing, and even biting each other in a brutal fight. Glass manages to plunge a blade into Fitzgerald's stomach, takes a blade to the hand, but responds with an axe to Fitzgerald's rib cage. He tries to crawl away, but Glass stabs him in the leg before mounting him, prepared to strangle him. Fitzgerald tells him that his revenge won't bring Hawk back, and just then, the band of Ree come riding up the bank. Glass sends him floating downstream, where the Ree leader scalps Fitzgerald and kills him. Glass is expecting the worst, but the band rides past with Pawaka with them, and he realizes his earlier kindness is what saved him. In the final scene, Glass retreats into the mountains, where he is visited by the spirit of his wife. Thanks for watching. If you had a good time, go ahead and hit that like button, drop a comment, and of course, subscribe for more recaps just like this. And hey, don't click away just yet. YouTube thinks you'll love one of these two videos popping up right here, so check them out next.